All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. Today, we're going to be talking about the Native American code talkers and the Enigma code that the Germans had. So, we're going to talk about two basically unbreakable codes, and one of them was actually broken. We're going to find out which one. All right. So, here is your warm up picture. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy. As you see, there's computers in the background, they're even numbered. And the guy on the bottom says, I've cracked it. It's all in German. Now, the first question asks you to analyze the picture and tell me what's going on. The second one says, based off your analysis, what do you think this artist is trying to say about people and computers? Okay, so look at what the guy says, look what the people are doing, and what do you think this artist is trying to say about people and computers? Okay, and if you're having the trouble like understanding, think how people are with computers now. You know, what do we use them for? How reliant are we with them? Things like that. So that should help you out. Okay. So think about it. Pause the video, write your response because we're moving on in three, two, one. So, code talkers is a name given to American Indians who use their tribal language to send secret communications. Now, like I said before in other classes, the Navajo and Comanche were the top two Native American groups that signed up. But there were a lot other groups, the Cherokees, I believe the Lakotas, too. They joined, and like in total, there was like 15 different tribes that signed up to be code talkers. Okay. Now, here is the irony of this whole situation with using Native Americans as code talkers. Native Americans were being used, or basically being asked to use their native language, um, when many of them, I mean, almost every single one of them, were forced to attend a government or religious ran boarding school where they were punished for speaking their native language. They were punished for wearing their native clothing. They were punished for praying to their native gods. You know, if they had native traditions, such as hairstyle, and clothing and holidays and celebrations and things like that. Even names, even their names were basically, oh, your name is not, you know, um, flies with eagle, things like that. No, your name is Henry, and that type of stuff. So here's a picture, a great illustration of how, uh, especially when they're kids, how they traditionally dressed in their native clothing, hairstyle, you know, and then when they went to like school, the boarding school. So look at the hairstyle, the clothing, even the stance. It's totally different. So they were punished for talking in their native language at school. And then now, hey, we want you guys to talk in your native language as a code. So the first group to sign up for the code talkers were 29 Navajo code talkers. These guys were Marine recruits and they began training immediately in 1942. Now, the first code, Type 1 code, was pretty relatively simple. 26 Navajo terms translated into individual English letters. So words like wali chi means ant. So ant, there's an A, so that'd be an A. Okay, so very, very simple. Type 2 code would contain more words, which would then translate to English. It would be up to 211. And then it expanded to 411 words. Now, here's the thing, Type 2 now had military words and names that were not originally existing in the Navajo language. So, words like submarine. In the Navajo language, there's no such thing as submarine. It's like in Spanish, When you say the word Sprite, the soda Sprite, there is no Sprite. That's why a lot of Mexicans call it Sprite. Because again, Sprite is not a word in the Spanish language. So they say Sprite. You know, it's the way it is. So for the native people to say submarine, they would use say words like bish lo, which is iron fish. Makes sense. Submarine. Okay. Now these guys were typically partnered with another person, and both guys knew how to operate the radio. They both knew the code, and one would relay the message, in the native language and translate it. The other person would hold the radio and operate it and things like that. Now, just in case something happened to one of them, the other person knew still how to operate the radio or translate the message. Okay. Now, every code that was used in the Pacific up to this point was broken by the Japanese. So before the code talkers, every code that was created by the U.S. was basically broken, and the Japanese figured it out. Okay, the Japanese are not stupid people; they're very smart people, and they figured it out. So here's your first question: would you help the country you live in if they basically took away your ancestors' land? They forced them to live in certain areas, which was not the best land to live in. Tried to make you forget your native language, native culture, native customs, or ceremonies, things like that. Would you still help that country if they ask for help? Why or why not? Okay. Explain and justify your response. Okay, so think about it, write your response because we're moving on in three, two, one. Now, the thing is with these code talkers, these guys proved and showed beyond a reasonable doubt that they were efficient and accurate under pressure. I mean, these guys were not like far away from the battle, giving messages, under a tent or, in a little bunker. No, these guys were right in the thick of the action, bullets flying, bomb bursting left and right, people getting shot, killed, blown up in front of them, and yet they still were able to keep their cool and translate their messages. Um, During the Battle of Iwo Jima, there were over 800 encrypted messages that were sent back and forth. All messages were sent and received without an error. What I mean by that is like instead of saying like, "Oh, we have 10,000 guys going to the left, going to the left of this position," they didn't say, "Oh, they're going right, to the position," and there's only 500, you know, they didn't mess up their message. It was always perfect. And again, like I said, bullets are flying by them, bombs are bursting through, and things like that right near them. They still translated the message. If you don't think that's impressive, here's where it gets even more impressive. When they got messages, they never wrote it down. When they heard like Wachi Lo, they put Ant, A, this, B, this, C. No, they didn't do that. They kept it all in their head. So they would go through the letters again and be like C, A, N, T, W, E, la 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 la. And they would translate the message. It was all in their head. All this while bullets are flying, bombs are bursting, things like that. One of the guys in charge of Iwo Jima, Major Howard Connor, said, "Were it not for the Navajos, the Marines would never have taken Iwo Jima." Now, here's the thing: the Japanese, hearing these coded messages in Navajo language, were like, "What in the world are they saying?" And they're trying to write it out, like Wali, Wa, W A, W may be E, this may be O, and this, and they're trying to figure out if whether these letters represent another letter, and they can't figure it out. So they go to the Germans. The Germans are like, oh, just give it to us. We're so smart. We're the like the greatest engineering minds. We have an unbreakable code. Let us see this code. What in the world is this? Are you guys sure you translated right? And the Japanese are like, here's the recordings of it. We recorded it. You listen to it. And they're like, what in the hell are they saying? They had no idea. And they too try to figure out like Wali, Wa, W could be H, A could be E, and this letter could be this. And they're trying to figure it out. And they just don't understand that this is not a coded message like letters being translated to other letters. It's a whole language. They have no idea. They can't wrap their minds around that concept that this is a whole language being said. Okay. So, yeah, the code was never broken by the Germans and the Japanese. Now, code talkers were in every single battle in the Pacific. Yes, there were some in Europe as well, but mainly their area where they were at was the Pacific. In total, 13 code talkers were killed out of a total of 400 of them. Right, so the pretty good odds. They survived. Now, historians argue that the Navajo code talkers helped expedite the end of the war, making it happen quicker. And without a doubt, there's no arguing that they have saved thousands and thousands of lives with their code. Now, here's the sad thing. When the war was over, because the Japanese never broke the code, because the Germans basically said this code's unbreakable, um, these guys were not able to tell anyone what they did during the war. So when someone asked them, what'd you do in the war?" They had to say, well, they had to tell them basically what group they signed up for. So like the first group said, "Hey, we were in the Marines. I was in the Army, I was in the Navy, I was in the Air Force, or whatever." You know, they couldn't tell anyone what they did. Um, Many Native American Indian code talkers were told you can't tell anyone, not even your own families. Why? Because again, the code was not broken. And the US government felt, well, we can still use this code in future wars because it hasn't been broken. So why let everyone know about it? Okay. It's not until 1968 that the Code Talker program is declassified and people are told, hey, yeah, this is what these guys did during World War II. Now, since then, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, the uh, Navajo Code Talkers have been receiving recognition. In 2001, they received the Congressional Gold Medals. You know, currently, as of 5/24/22, there are 4 code talkers who are still alive. Okay. So here's question number 2. Code talkers have been acknowledged and given awards in the past 40 plus years. Do you believe we should honor them more? Why not? So if you say yes, we should, what more can we honor them with? They have schools named after them. They are given awards. They have movies and uh, documentaries and stuff like that written and created about them. How else can we honor them? Okay. Now, if you say no, we've honored them enough. That's plenty. You know, tell me, why should we stop? Why can't we do more? Why do you think we shouldn't do more? Okay. So think about it. Write your response because we're moving on. in 3, 2, 1. Now, of the remaining soldiers, these are them. The ones in blue, John Kessel Sr., Peter MacDonald, Thomas H. Begay, and Samuel F. Sandoval. Let me move my little video here so you can see this picture. Yeah, those guys are still alive. The one in the middle, Joe Vanderveer Sr., he passed away on January 31st, 2020. So there's still 4 of those guys right there. They are still alive. The last of the code talkers. All right, so we're now going to go from one unbreakable code to another that was seen as like, there's no way in the world anyone could break this. The Enigma Machine. It was a device used by the German military command to encode strategic messages during World War II. It was created by this guy named Edward Elgar in 1923. But the original use was for commercial, not military. Basically, what you would do is get this machine, type your message to, let's say, your sweetheart or whomever. You would give them the code, okay? They would then basically get the message and they would have to type in the letters that they got. And the with the coded message already put in, the plugs and all that stuff, the rotors moved, and then they would press the letter like D, and it would pop up like over here, I, and then E, and an L, and then T, O, and then V, and then E, things like that. So it would give the message. Okay, that's what it was used for. Okay, now without that key, it was nearly impossible to decipher the code. Okay, now as you look at that picture, you might think, well, that just looks like a little typewriter with some lights on top. True, but underneath it's ridiculous how sophisticated this machine was. So inside the machine there were 3 rotors in from a set of 5. So there's set of 5, there's 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. And in each rotor there was 26 positions, 26 letters. Okay? And then from that there's a plug board in which there was 10 pairs of letters to be connected. So if you did the math, 26 times 26 times 26 times 26 times 26 times 26, you keep doing the math of that, you're going to get the total number of possibilities, which is you see at the bottom there, that last paragraph. Okay? Now, a student asked me in class, how do you say that number? Believe it or not, it's this. 158 quintillion, 962 quadrillion, 555 trillion, 217 billion, 826 million, 360,000 different possibilities. Just to give you a sense of how hard it would be to break one code. Right now, on the world, right now, we have 8 billion people. Okay? Let's see, that was billion. So, if you gave every person a machine like that, every man, woman, and child on this earth, everybody would have to go through 158,962,555,217 different possibilities. Every single person on earth would have to go through that many just to figure out one code. That should tell you how impossible it was to figure out the code without the key. Here's the thing. Some Polish mathematicians actually figured out a way to break the code, So they just needed a little help knowing 1 or 2 things, and the odds of figuring out the code went from 158 quintillion to a really shorter number in the trillions, type of thing, which sounds more reasonable. So they gave this knowledge to the British. Well, the Nazis again are not stupid people. They realize, you know what, if we keep the same code, eventually somebody might break it. So, you know what we'll do? We'll change the code every day at midnight. So that's what they did. Every day at midnight, they would change the code. Code breakers from Britain basically would have 18 hours to break the code. They would have 18 hours to go through 158 quintillion possibilities, and then when midnight hit, they'd have to start all over again. It was that bad, that frustrating. It was impossible. And here's the thing, the Nazis were so confident that nobody could break the code, they broadcasted their coded messages to everyone in the open airwaves. They let anybody who had a radio dial in and could hear the code. They didn't care. They knew the odds of somebody breaking it is so small. And even if they break it that one day, they're not going to have the code to break it the next day, because it's going to be a totally different key, which means there's going to be another 158 different quintillion possibilities. So here's your next question. Do you think there are secret government code messages in newspaper, videos, Instagram messages, images, social media accounts? Do you think they have that? Do you think they have like a little coded message on a picture on someone's social media, and like, hey, there's a secret spy who's like, oh yeah, I'm looking at my friend's social media site, all this cute little honey, and to anyone else it looks like a picture, but really there's a coded message inside that picture. Do you think that we have something like that, or do you think like it's like, nah, that's we probably don't have anything like that. That's like Hollywood made up type of stuff. Tell me what you think. Okay. Pause the video, write your response because we're moving on in three, two, one. All right, so there is a mathematician named Alan Turing. He had this idea of creating a device that could do math faster than humans. He's like, something that could do math faster than me. So the device he would create is what we would now know as a computer. Okay, now Turing and his team were working on this machine. He called it Christopher, but the team they called it Bombi. Okay, and they're trying to go through all these different possibilities, all 158 quintillion, and this machine is really working. It's trying to figure it out, and even for a machine, it's going to be just working and working and working. So what happened is Alan Turing and his team, they just got ideas like, wait, why are we trying to figure out all 158 quintillion possibilities when we know for a fact on the messages they have certain things that are said all the time? And the number one thing that's said in every single message, every single phone call, every single time some people are talking to each other, or even just walking by the street, they always have to say the same thing: Heil Hitler. Basically, Hitler's ego is the reason why they were able to break the code. So they would get a coded message and look at the very bottom, look at the very end of it, and they knew it was going to say Heil Hitler. Whether it's a news report, weather report, whether it's a talk about where soldiers were going to be at, they would always end it with the same phrase, Heil Hitler. So all Turing had to do was go to his machine and be like, okay, well, we know what letters are Heiltr. So let's find those. And then okay, so what's today's message? What does the first letter start with? So for H, oh, it's T. Okay, so let's put H with T. Over here is H with T. What's the next one? E. It's O. Okay, put E for O, things like that. And they basically did that with the machine, and the machine using those letters figured out the code every day. It took about a minute, but they figured it out. So they broke the code. This first world's first computer actually broke the code. But here's the problem now. They were getting messages saying, "Oh, the Germans were telling their submarines, do a surprise attack on this British boat." Okay, the British boat's going one way this whole trip, right? Now, if they told that British ship, "Hey, the Nazis are going to attack you guys at this particular spot," and all of a sudden here's the British ship going straight, 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 and all of a sudden stops or turns or goes the opposite way, all of a sudden, that's going to tell the German people or the German officials, how did they know about that? How do they know we're going to be there? They broke the code. And with that, they would cut off all radio communication. They might alter the machine, put another different set of reels on there, make the code even more difficult. And on top of that, the British wouldn't know what alterations the Nazis did to the box. So just to save a small group of people, they would risk not knowing what the Nazis were doing or planning to do and things like that. Now, I had a student in class ask me, well, what's the whole point then of knowing what was being said if you can't help them out? So basically, what they would do is this. Let's say the British were marching this way, okay? British are marching that way, and here comes the Nazis. They're coming this way, and they're like, we're going to attack them. Well, here's some Americans marching this way as the British are going this way. They might tell them, hey, why don't you guys group together and march the same way? So they would send that. And then they'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. Let's do it. So they would team up together, and all of a sudden the Germans are like, oh man, the Americans and the British, they were going the same way, and now they're going together. It's logical that they would do that. They're allies, you know. Or let's say over here, the Nazis have some buried weapons and gold and jewelry and things like that. Well, if the Allies are searching this town, this town, this town, this town, and then get over here, then it seems logical, right? That hey, they were searching in all the towns in that area. They knew, hey, you need to get to this place soon, but you need to act like you're going through these other towns. You know, that's how they use that information. Okay. Now, it wasn't until the 1970s that it was declassified. The whole, you know, Alan Turing and his team breaking the code, that was kept hush hush basically for 30 years. Alan Turing and his team basically, on their war record, it was empty. Their service was basically erased. No one knew what they did. And again, it wasn't until the 1970s that people realized, man, this guy's a hero. So here's your exit ticket question. Do you believe that sacrificing a few people to save many is justified? You think that's okay? If you're going to sacrifice, if you sacrifice a handful of people to save a lot, it's okay. If your immediate response was right away saying, yeah, it's okay, I want you to think of this. Would your opinion change if someone you cared about, someone who was your family member, someone who you love, someone you treasure, someone you care about, whether it's your mom, dad, cousin, favorite uncle, your girlfriend, if you have a kid, your child, if they were being sacrificed, would you still say yes? Sacrifice them so you can save so many more people. Would your answer change? You tell me. Okay. Think about it. Really, really think about it. It's easy, yes, to say, oh, yeah, it's just sacrifice so many people. But what if it's your own? What if it's someone you care about? Could you easily make that call? All right, so once you've responded to this question, make sure that your name is on the paper. All right, so you guys, you take care, you be safe, and I'll see you guys later, okay?